Good morning, friends. This rain really has a chokehold on this build at this point, it feels like, but we're powering through anyways. Yesterday, I went ahead and Raptor lined, which is like a thick bed liner that you can do at home yourself, the ladder and the upper railing. I didn't record it, super sorry, because I was racing the rain and it actually ended up sprinkling as the paint was still drying. So I'm glad that I got that out of the way. But the reason that I did that is because I am hellbent on getting to the inside of the camper this week, which means that I need to complete all of the wiring on the upper part of the camper. That means I need to put my scene lights in and wire those up when we get a break in the rain. I also need to wire my fan and the lights that are going in the ceiling, so that way I can put up the upholstery and then put up my side walls. That upholstery is going to tuck behind the walls that are going up on the sides of the camper on the interior. So that's why all that has to get done first. But since it's raining today and it seems pretty unlikely that I'll be able to get those scene lights up on the outside, I'm gonna do everything that I can before that point. So finishing up my insulation, spraying some gaps and cracks, running all my pre-wiring, and cutting out those last wood ceiling pieces that go up behind the upholstery. So that way when I get a break, I can hit the ground running, get those lights in, and get moving. For now, we're just gonna focus on the insulation. So let's get inside. All right, so I did get all of the foam board in here. Again, apologize for the lighting, it's so bad. But here is the foam board. You can see I still have something propped up there pushing this in. But unfortunately, and this is how Bigfoot did it as well, I don't know if it's for flexibility within the camper, but they left all of these massive gaps, which generally speaking might not be a huge deal. But because they are literally all over the camper, whether we're looking up here in the crease or looking down here in the side, this is like, I can fit my hand in there, basically. And so I'm gonna be doing something that might be a little bit controversial, I don't know, but it's all I can think to do without completely insulating the camper again, which I don't want to do for time and financial purposes. But I'm going to be adding this gaps and cracks around all of the edges that I won't be using to run wire. Now I do still have wire that I have to run, both from the solar and the lights, and then also marker lights and a couple of switches that I'm already planning on adding. So I will be leaving those areas clear, but all of the corners around the floor, some of the gaps in the ceiling, those are all going to get sealed today, so that way they have time to properly cure before I put the walls in. Now this stuff is great. I've used it in the van and the bus actually to help seal up gaps and cracks. It definitely helped reduce some of the drafts in the bus because it did have some open areas that needed to be filled to make it a watertight, airtight living space. But the bummer about this stuff is it's super, super messy. And what you actually do is spray this, allow it to puff up and cure, and then you go back in with a knife, like a sheetrock knife, or I think I actually used a bread knife in the van, and cut it down, trim it to size. That way it fits flush. So I'm gonna do this today because I don't plan on putting the walls in for at least 2 or 3 more days, so it should have plenty of time to cure, and then it'll also give me time to cut it down. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is golden. The future is gold.
future is golden. Step into the moment. Yeah, I'm facing that mystery. It's my time to own it. Can I make history? Yeah. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? Alright. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is gold. Making magic every day that I got alright. Automatic all the way to the top, alright. The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is gold. The future is golden. Let's go. Hey oh, na 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 na. Hey oh, let's go. Hey oh, na 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 na.
All right, so now on to the wiring of the fan and the lights, which probably seems preliminary, but once I put this wood backing, so I'm actually gonna upholster over this, once I put this up, it's going to be very difficult for me to lay wire. And so these things obviously are not gonna have power right now. They won't have power until I have my electrical system set up, but I do need to think ahead and start planning out and placing the wires for the ceiling. Right now, that's limited to the Max Air fan that I installed last week and the lights that I just cut out holes for in that ceiling piece. Once those are placed, I'm going to pop my ceiling in, and this place might start looking a little bit more like a home. So let's get to it. For the majority of the components and appliances in the build, I will be using 18 and 14 gauge wires, so be 18-2 or 14-2, with the exception of my 110 or 120 volt outlets that I'll be wiring later on down the line within my cabinets. So I got all the wires hooked up for my lights and my fan, and then asked my mom for a bit of help because this was definitely a two-person job, and we were able to get the ceiling panel in. I did have blocks already set in the ceiling from installing my solar last week, which was super handy in helping secure the ceiling, but ultimately I did actually take this down and re-secure it with more glue and more supports to make sure that it held up over time, and then I didn't have any issues later on down the line with my ceiling falling down. All right, the backing for my ceiling is in. Again, I will be putting a marine carpet over this, which wasn't my first choice, but I think it just looks clean and pretty seamless. It's how the camper came, but it had paint all over it, and I needed to run these new wires, which is why I did take everything down. To finish up for today though, I'm gonna go ahead and go in all of these edges and finish. You can see I kind of stopped right here because I ran out. I'm gonna finish the gaps and cracks just so that way it can set overnight. So in the morning I can come in, I can trim it. Probably, maybe I have time to fix this front piece as well. As you can see, that ripped when I was taking out the hatch. So I need to replace that portion and this little guy over here. And then I think we're gonna be pretty much ready to put in the headliner. I know it doesn't look like much, but it does feel like I'm getting a good amount done today. Running wires, finishing insulation, getting everything just prepped so that way later this week I can put the walls in.
I get lost looking in your eyes, a little shook up at the sight of you. It gets me every time. When I'm swimming against the tide, you're throwing me a line, pulling me back to you. I got it all right. I got it all right. I got it all with you.
All right, I'm gonna take advantage of this little bit of sunshine that we have to actually shed some light into the camper, talk about what I got done this week, and a few things that I needed to change along the way. This week, I made what feels like the biggest moves that I've made since starting the camper, between insulation, putting in the ceiling, which is still being supported up behind me to make sure it sticks, to mounting the exterior scene lights, getting all the compartments finished. It just really feels like I'm finally making some good progress, and I think this coming week that is going to increase maybe even 5 or 10-fold because we finally have some sunny weather coming. So this coming week, hopefully that will be dry in the next 24 hours, which will put us, I guess, Saturday afternoon. So by Sunday, I should be ready to put up the upholstery. And once the upholstery is in, I can start putting in my main walls. Now I have decided, instead of putting up like ugly 1/8-inch backing and then putting walls over that, I'm just gonna put my finished walls up. Obviously they won't be sealed and actually sanded down and finished until a little bit later on, but this is gonna hopefully help me save weight while still maintaining some decent aesthetics. I'm really excited about the maple pieces that I chose, and I think they're gonna look really nice and keep it warm and cabiny in here. Once those walls, like the skin of the camper, is put on, it's going to be time to install the cabinetry. I'm gonna start probably with the battery and fridge side, just because those really need to be sized to the components that I purchased. Go over to the bench and then to my kitchen. It's a lot to get done in 1 week, so I probably won't make it that far by the next time I see you, but hopefully we're a lot closer because I really only have 5 or 6 weeks left until I'm trying to be back on the road for an event and then for the year to come. At some point over the next couple of weeks, I am also going to be making a trip back up to Bend, where I have a storage unit from this summer when I sold my bus, and that's gonna allow me to get all of my stuff back here to California, so that way I'm ready to move in as soon as the camper is done. At some point, I'm also gonna fix this crusty door, which is why we still have tape and things from the clamshell seam not being completely finished yet. I've decided I'm not actually gonna rip the whole thing out. It's having some issues closing, but I think a lot of that is actually due to this door that's just partially out of frame, being kind of rotten. After a bit of research, it seems like there's actually wood structures or wood framing inside of the door, along with the polyiso board. So I am gonna have to take this apart at some point over the next few weeks and re-insulate it, put new wood strips in there, and make sure it's super sturdy and that it closes as easily as possible. Because right now, I actually can't close the door from inside of the camper, which is an issue for obvious reasons. But all of that's coming in the next few weeks. In the meantime, I hope you guys have enjoyed this week's video and seeing the progress I've made so far. I have a lot of really exciting, fun style choices coming up in terms of what the finished product is going to look like. So I'd love to hear what you guys think so far down in the comments, and I will see you all next Sunday. Bye.